Hello everybody, today we're going to be discussing some Doctor Who predictions for the upcoming special, Revolution of the Daleks. Now, this special is 6 months out as of recording this, so there's a ton of information that we don't have about it, and we're likely not going to even get that much before it comes out, so what I want to do is just sit down and think about what directions it could head based off of where Series 12 ended. And what this does mean is that as we discuss the potential direction of this special, I am going to have to discuss some spoilers for Series 12, so if you have not seen Series 12, then please stop watching now. And these predictions are really just based on what has already happened in the show, where the characters are left off, and where I personally think it is likely to be headed. I'm going to try avoiding making any wild predictions because I am trying to be realistic in what I think might happen in this special. And with that said, let's discuss my predictions for Revolution of the Daleks. The return of Captain Jack. This is one I do go back and forth on because I'm not sure if it's going to happen in this special, but we do know it's going to happen because he said when the Doctor needed him, he would be there for her, so it seems quite likely that this is the time when she needs him. I felt that Series 13 was probably when he was going to return, but thinking about where we were left off at the end of Series 12, with her being alone in the Judoon prison, it does make sense that he would help her in the special. He might end up being the one to let her out of that cell, or it's actually possible he's in one of those cells next to her, because we did see that he was getting into some trouble in episode 5 of Series 12, Fugitive of the Judoon. So it's entirely possible that we kick off this special and we find that, oh, Captain Jack was there as well, and that's like the next thing we see. I think that's pretty likely. If he doesn't show up here, then he'll definitely show up later. This seems like the kind of thing you would just throw into a special. Have Captain Jack in there, and it's going to be more fun. If you put this thing on Christmas or New Year's Day, whenever it's going to air, you have that character in there, and it's going to be a more enjoyable episode, at least a more comedic episode. And other predictions I'm making today, this is the one I actually think is the most likely. So that should give you some sort of a gauge as to the rest of the predictions that I'm going to be making, because while, yes, I think this one's going to happen, it might not happen in this episode, and I think the rest of my predictions are even less likely. So somewhat piggybacking off of the previous prediction, here's what I think the next one's going to be, and I kind of have to explain it a little bit, because I think that Captain Jack is likely to play a big role in this story, but if he does, it's going to be early on. And that's why this one's even less likely, because it kind of involves something similar to that, or that, happening. And what I think is going to happen is there's going to be a big emotional scene where the Doctor gets to reunite with her companions. If you think about it, at the end of Series 12, there's this huge emotional exit as she left, thinking that she was leaving her companions for good as they went off in a TARDIS to go home, and that was the last that she saw of them, before she was captured by the Judoon and taken to their prison. So of course we are going to see these characters come back together in the special, it only makes sense, but I think there's definitely going to be an emotional scene somewhat comparable to the level of scene that we got with their actual exit, where she gets to see them again and be really happy and overjoyed that she gets to see her friends again because she's been taken away and captured. I don't think it's going to be a big important story moment, but when I sat down to think about where our characters left off and where they're going to have to head into this story, I really think that a somewhat big reunion scene is destined to happen when these characters do actually get the chance to meet again. I did say I wasn't planning to do any crazy predictions, and this one does in some ways feel a bit safe, but I just think this one is so likely to happen, and it's one of the things that I can picture in my mind actually happening, this emotional reunion scene, that I feel like I have to mention it here, even if briefly. I'm going to give you a somewhat mild spoiler warning for the upcoming special, because there was an announcement earlier, I think a couple of months ago now, about one thing that's going to happen in that special, and if you don't want to have any idea as to what that is, then you can leave now. I'm going to be really vague about it and not talk too much in terms of the specifics of what is happening, but I do have to directly address the thing that was announced, but I'm going to do it in a vague way. I know that sounds weird, but that's what I'm going to try to do, so you've been fairly warned, and if you want to, then you can skip past this prediction by jumping to the time shown on screen. Otherwise, we will continue. No companion deaths. Now, it is hard to know with a new showrunner what they're going to do when it comes to the exit of a companion, and with Chris Chibnall, he has yet to handle that. Sure, he killed off Grace in episode 1 of his era, but that was a deliberate step to set up the sort of arc for that series, as much as Series 11 had an arc. So that was a very specific thing designed from the beginning of that series. but when it comes to exiting a proper companion who has been on the show for a while, it's tough to know what he's going to do, and it does seem, based on the things that have been announced, that we are going to be losing at least one of these companions this upcoming special, and I personally don't think Chris Chibnall is going to kill one of them off. Yeah, it's a Dalek episode. Yeah, you could have a really emotional, sad death with one of these Daleks murdering a companion in front of the Doctor's eyes and that person's friend's eyes, and that is possible, but for me, it doesn't seem like the kind of thing that Chris Chibnall is going to do. And I know this doesn't seem like a really specific prediction because it's not. I'm saying, oh, this is what's not going to happen. So to add to this and make it a little bit more specific, what I'm going to say is that while none of the main companions will die, because I just don't think that Chibnall is going to have this episode go that dark, for what is a family show on a special holiday, probably Christmas or New Year's, I don't think he's going to throw a companion death in there. I think that in that way, it's going to be what you might call a safe adventure. But what I am going to do to have a specific prediction is say that while I don't think a main companion will die, I do think Captain Jack will die. And, he'll come back to life because he's Captain Jack. But I think they're going to throw that in there so that the companions can see that. The Return of the Dalek Emperor. Now, if you think about what this story is going to be doing and how long it is going to have to tell that story, well, it's only got 60 minutes to have the Daleks be this menacing threat and have our companions face them and whatever's going on there. So particularly if the story does have Captain Jack, I think it's unlikely they would do something as big as having Davros come back because he's going to take up so much screen presence, and unless it's something like Day of the Daleks, where he's barely even in there and just is like, okay, I'll see you later, I guess, then he's probably not going to be in this story. But I do think that the Dalek Emperor is the kind of villain that you could have in this and have just be there as a representative sort of for the Daleks, and allowing them to have this big fleet that is this big threat, while also having sort of a singular threat in the form of the Dalek Emperor, similar to what was done actually just in Series 12 with the Shad, where you had this big army, but you also had a Shad representing them as the singular foe, so that you could sort of channel all of that stuff through this one character who is different from the rest of the Daleks. So because we haven't seen the Dalek Emperor in a while, and also because it seems like this story, only has 60 minutes, and thus you can't have too much going on, this seems like the appropriate level of having the Daleks be an important threat and also bring in sort of a central foe with them. It just kind of balances these two things, which Chris Chibnall has done before with the Shad and the Cybermen. So to me, this feels like the correct balance, whereas, doing something like bringing in Davros would probably take away from the Daleks a little bit more than it would add to them, because when you have Davros in a story, then he's, the big thing of that story. So unless he's not going to be a big part of this, and the Daleks aren't going to be, super important in this one, which it really feels like they will be, it's called Revolution of the Daleks, then this to me just feels right. And it might not actually happen, I'm not totally confident about this, but it is something that feels like, yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense to bring back the Dalek Emperor within this story because it's just the right level of villain for what this one seems like it's going to be doing. And that's that. Just a couple of predictions for what I think might happen in Revolution of the Daleks. I'm not terribly confident about any of these other than the first one, which I think is pretty likely, to be honest. But the rest of them, you could really go either way with, They might happen, they might not happen. So yeah, what are your predictions for Revolution of the Daleks? What are you expecting to happen in this upcoming special? Do you agree with me on any of these or none of these? I would love to hear your thoughts down below. I'm super curious as to what you have to say. I do hope to see you around this upcoming Sunday for a review of The Invasion, and hopefully in July for more Doctor Who videos as well, but if not, that is absolutely fine, so long as you know that I appreciate your time here today. And with that said, thank you very much for watching, take care, and have a lovely week.